the lecture. If there are any questions regarding what we discussed yesterday, please feel free to ask them right now. And let's see. Okay, if not, then let's do a quick recap. So I think when I was explaining Jordan curve theorem, I also explained the corollary, but I did not write down the corollary. So today I'm going to write it down. So the Jordan curve theorem just says that if you have a curve in the plane, then it partitions the rest of the plane into the interior, the inside the curve, and the exterior, whatever is outside the curve, right? And these two sets are disjoint, arc-wise connected open sets. And because they are disjoint, one consequence of this, which I also mentioned as part of the Jordan curve theorem, but is actually a separate corollary, technically speaking, is that every arc joining a point in the interior of C to a point in the exterior of C must cross the curve itself in at least one point. Okay, so if you go from the interior to the exterior, you necessarily must meet the curve in at least one point. Okay, of course you can keep going in and out, so you can meet the curve in, I don't know, 5 times if you like, but you must meet in at least one point. Okay, good. Right. Okay, so that's the corollary of Jordan curve theorem. So as we discussed, what we need to discuss planarity is we need some properties of the plane, right? And so one of the most important properties of the plane is the Jordan curve theorem. There is another property of the plane that I want to discuss. But let's start with a question. Okay, so here is the question. Supposing a certain graph admits a planar embedding, which means you can embed it on the plane so that any two edges meet only at their ends if they meet. Then can you also embed the same graph on a sphere with the same property? So you want to now embed on the sphere, right? Think of the globe, if you like, such that any two edges meet only at their ends. So what do you think? If you can embed on the plane, can you also embed on the sphere with the same property?
So when you say embedding on the sphere, are we embedding on the surface or can we use the entire volume of the sphere?
No, no, no. We are embedding on the surface of the sphere. Thanks. We are embedding on the surface of the sphere.
It should be possible.
Yeah, it should be easier than the plane.
Okay. So the point is you are saying that it is possible. So if you can embed it on the plane, then you can also embed it on the sphere, right? Intuitively, that seems true. What about the converse? If you can embed a graph on the sphere, then can you embed it on the plane with the property that any two edges meet only at their ends?
I think so.
Right. So intuitively, this seems true. The formal reason for it is called stereographic projections, which we will not discuss. We are going to assume that this intuitively true statement is correct. Okay, so we are actually going to call this just a fact. This is the second property of the plane. A graph admits a planar embedding, as we defined, if and only if the graph admits an embedding on the sphere such that edges meet only at their ends. Okay? I like to think of it in the following way. You know, it's a sort of a funny way of thinking how humans for a long time, and apparently there are still humans who believe that the earth is flat, which of course we know is not. But it kind of, if you think about stereographic projections, it seems like you could excuse humans for thinking this way for so long. Because in some sense, it does look like a flat surface. Of course, it is not. That's because it's a huge ball. right? So that's one way of sort of rationalizing it, if you like. But the formal reason, of course, is not that. It is stereographic projections. So you might have read stereographic projections in some engineering course. If not, you can just take a look at Wikipedia, right? Okay, so we are going to assume this fact. Good. Why is this relevant? We will discuss it a bit later. Good. One more question. So why is the Jordan curve theorem really important when you discuss planar graphs? We will, hopefully you will be convinced by the end of this module that it's really playing a central role in planarity. But I want to ask you a more basic question. A closed curve, a simple closed curve, what does it correspond to in graph theory? Actually, let me remove graph theory. In planar embedding of a planar graph. So if you think of a closed curve, simple closed curve, this is a topological, my pronunciation of topological is never right. It's a topological notion, simple closed curve. What does this correspond to in a planar embedding of a planar graph? If you have a planar embedding of a planar graph, then what object of the graph would look like a closed curve? Cycle. Thank you. Exactly. A closed curve basically corresponds to a cycle. Okay? It doesn't matter how you draw the cycle. You can draw it like this. Okay? So, good. So the answer to that is cycles. Closed curves correspond to cycles. Good. Okay. Now you see, throughout this discussion, I had to keep saying planar embedding of a planar graph. It might have been a bit annoying. So we are going to introduce a term, a plane graph. When we say plane graph, we are referring to an embedding. Okay? And this is actually a very important distinction that I want you to keep in mind when also writing the assignments. So remember, we had the graph K4 yesterday, and we drew multiple drawings of it, some of which were planar. So one of the drawings we had was something like this. Another planar drawing was a straight line drawing. Of course, my lines are not exactly straight, but that's not the point. So if my graph G is equal to K4, in this topic, because we are dealing with drawings of a graph so closely, we are going to continuously distinguish between the graph and an embedding of the graph, right? The graph is an abstract mathematical object. You don't need to draw it. An embedding of the graph is a representation of that mathematical object. And it is for this reason that we are going to distinguish between, we will distinguish between a graph and its planar embeddings. Okay? And these planar embeddings, as we discussed, will be called plane graphs. Okay? In particular, in this example here, I could say that this is G, the graph K4, which I have not drawn because it does not need to be drawn. This is G1 tilde, and this is G2 tilde. So generally, I will be putting a tilde over the graph to denote that we are talking about a plane graph, which means it is an embedding or a representation of the graph. And if I don't put a tilde, I'm talking about the abstract graph without an embedding, without a drawing. Okay? Good. We will see later the important reasons why we are distinguishing these two. But so far, I hope the main idea, main reason is clear, right? Okay, good. Fine. So at the end of yesterday's lecture, I asked you as an exercise to prove that K5 is non-planar using the Jordan curve theorem. And also for K33. So does anybody have an explanation for why K5 is non-planar? So we'll prove this today rigorously. But before we go into the proof, I want someone to, well, I want a few people to tell me what they thought about. Does anybody have any ideas on how you would proceed to prove this?
Yeah. So
Okay, so whoever has an idea, maybe just write on the chat box yes, and then I'm going to call out someone. Okay, we've got one person. Any more? Okay, two. Any more? Okay. Ritvik, do you want to start?
Yeah, so we can construct a cycle with 3 vertices
Okay, you want me to construct a cycle with 3 vertices.
and place the remaining 2, one inside and one outside.
I see. Okay. So let's so we put one cycle. So right, we have to put a cycle. Okay, and that is a closed curve. Now we have this curve C, right? So C in this case is not the cycle, it is the closed curve. Okay, corresponding to V1, V2, V3. And so you get two parts, interior of the C and the exterior of the C by the Jordan curve theorem. Okay, now proceed.
Yeah, now I'll place, like I have to still place 2 vertices, right? So I'll place
Right.
one in the interior of C and one in exterior of C.
Why? Why not? So we know we want to place one of them in the interior. Well, we don't know. Maybe we can place both of them in the interior. Why not?
Yeah, so if we place both of them in the interior, let's say we place first V4 and we connect
Okay.
everyone to V4.
Okay, so let's proceed step by step. We can put V4 in the inside, and you are saying we connect V4 to each
Everyone,
of these.
Yeah.
By, okay, so these are the edges joining V4 to V1, V2, and V3.
Yeah. So
Okay.
now I have to place V5. So if I place V5 in any of these smaller triangles or closed curves,
Right.
then it cannot connect to the vertex outside that curve.
Right. So supposing you put V5 here, then you are saying that it cannot connect to which one?
V3 in this case.
Right. Because V5 is in the interior of this curve, this triangle curve, and V3 is in the exterior of that triangle curve, right? The closed
Yeah.
curve corresponding to that triangle. Right. And so you won't be able to put V5 here. Okay. And then by a similar argument, you can also not put V5 here or here. Right?
Yeah.
Does
exactly.
everybody see that? And so now we must put V5 outside, right? Okay. And now what happens?
Now the same thing happens, like v5 is kind of inside v1 v2 v3, like exterior of v1 v2 v3,
I see. Right.
so it can't connect to v4 in this case.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. That's perfect. Okay. Thanks a lot. Samuel, did you have a similar idea or something different?
It was similar to this.
Okay. Okay. Good.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, I have a small question. Like, why is it that we put V4 inside? Why can't we put V4 outside? in the
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Okay. So this is where we are going to use the fact that drawing on the plane is the same as drawing on the sphere. Okay. That's a very good point. So remember this whole inside outside business. This is, this is really, there is no difference between the inside and the outside. If you were drawing on the sphere, you see when you draw on the plane, it seems that all the region inside is bounded. It looks like a finite region, where the region outside looks like an infinite, or to be more precise, an unbounded region. Do you agree?
Yes.
Right? But in reality, if you just draw it on a sphere, then they are both bounded. There is no difference between the inside and the outside.
Yes.
Right? Was that Anand who asked, or who was it?
Yes.
Do you see this? That once you think about drawing it on a sphere, although we are thinking about drawing on the plane, but to convince yourself that the interior and the exterior, they are really not different. You just have to think of drawing it on the sphere.
Yes,
To
sir.
give you one example, draw a curve as the equator of the globe. Now, what is the inside and what is the outside?
Both of them are identical.
Exactly. Okay.
In this case, if instead of having like three straight lines forming a triangle, if you just draw three curved lines, then it should
Right.
be possible to put V4 in both the interior and the exterior.
So you want to draw curved lines instead of straight lines?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do I want to draw it? Let's see. Something like this, V1, V2, V3, like this?
No, like
No.
concave one. Like this is
Oh, you
like,
want me to make it concave? I see, like this. All of them concave?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Still,
So let's make all of them concave. Okay. Now,
so we can always find lines that are both like you can put V4 outside as well as inside. It makes sense to put it both outside and inside.
you mean outside or inside, or outside and inside?
It doesn't matter where you put it. It's almost the same. You can always find lines that do not touch each other and just intersect at V4.
Right. So you can put it either in the inside or the outside, right? Basically, so are you saying that the proof we discussed goes through, or does it fall apart? Does the proof we discussed still go through, or does it fall apart? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm not able to follow what you are saying. Can you explain again?
So, like in the above one,
Yeah.
can you illustrate the same thing using V4 in the exterior, like in the above proof?
Right. Right. I can put V4 in the exterior, and the same proof is going to work again, right?
Yeah. If it works again, then I have no issue.
Okay. So you want to try it? So let's see if it works. Now the same argument works, right? If you put V5 in any of these triangles, this triangle T1, T2, or T3, you are always not going to be able to connect V5 to one of the three vertices V1, V2, and V3. Do you see that?
Yes, sir, I do see that, but it depends on how we draw the diagram, right? Because just because
Right. So it's not going to depend on that. So let's write down a rigorous proof. It will not depend at all on how you draw. Okay. Shall we proceed writing a formal proof? Yeah.
yes, sir.
Okay. So let's proceed. So basically, the proof Ritvik mentioned is works actually. We are going to write it down without making precise drawings. Okay. The drawing is only to help the reader. The drawing is not supposed to be required for the proof to work. Okay. So let's try to write down a proof. Okay. So we are going to prove by contradiction. Okay. Let G be K5 and let G tilde denote a planar embedding of K5. Okay. Good. We label the vertices of G like in this drawing. Okay. So label vertices as shown in this drawing, where V1 to V5. Okay. Now C equal to V1, V2, V3 is a cycle of G and corresponds to a closed curve. Let's call it C tilde in G tilde, right? So I'm not making any assumption about what the curve looks like. It is a simple closed curve, simple closed curve. Is it clear why it has to be a simple closed curve? Because we have a planar embedding. So the curve itself cannot intersect itself. Okay. So it corresponds to a simple closed curve in G tilde. And by Jordan curve theorem, the plane, the rest of the plane, so by that I mean plane minus C tilde is partitioned into, I won't write down everything, two disjoint, arcwise, open, whatever. You get the interior of C tilde and the exterior of C tilde. Okay. Is everybody with me so far? Right. So the figure is only to help you visualize what's going on, right? But the lines can be drawn in any way you like, right? So this is your cycle C, and C tilde is the corresponding closed curve, and you get the interior of C tilde and the exterior of C tilde. Okay. Now, each of V4 and V5 must be placed in interior or in the exterior. Or one could be in the interior, one could be in the exterior, right? So maybe I should be more precise. I am not trying to make any assumptions here. Each of them is placed in one of the interior and the exterior, right? So either both of them could be going inside, both of them could be going outside, one inside, one outside. We don't know, right? So here is where we are going to adjust notation, or if you like, without loss of generality. Let V4, the point corresponding to V4, belong to the interior of C tilde. Okay. So if you don't think that this is without loss of generality, then you can repeat the whole argument again with putting it in the exterior, and you will see that the whole argument goes through. Okay, good. All right. So now we are going to consider 3 cycles. Maybe let me make a bigger drawing. Okay, so you're putting V4 here. All right, and now we are going to consider 3 cycles. How are we going to define them? So the one which does not contain V1, I'm going to call it C1. The one which does not contain V2, I'm going to call it C2. And the other one, I'm going to call it C3. Okay? So I won't write down the definitions of these cycles. Just to give you an example, C1 is V2, V3, V4. And back to V2. Okay? And similarly, C2 and C3. Okay? So consider the cycle, the closed curve C1 tilde. So it is the curve corresponding to the cycle C1 in the embedding. Okay. Consider this closed curve C1 tilde. Okay. So C1 corresponds to C1 tilde. Okay. Again, this gives you an interior and the exterior. So there is the interior here and the exterior is outside C1 tilde, right? So this is your C1 tilde. Okay. So the point is, where does V5 go? If V5 were to be placed in C1 tilde, then V5 would be in the interior. So if V5 belongs to C1, the interior of C1 tilde, so if you put it inside, then V1, V5 crosses the curve C1 tilde, right? Because V5 is inside and V1 is outside. Okay? And this would be a contradiction to planarity. This would be a contradiction. This implies that V5 is not in the interior of C1 tilde. Okay? And this argument works for any I going from 1 to 3. So consider the closed curve Ci tilde, where I belongs to 1, 2, 3. If I were to place V5 in the interior of Ci tilde, then the edge Vi V5 would cross the curve Ci tilde. And this contradicts that V5 is in Ci tilde. Okay? So which means we have proved that V5 cannot be here in this part. V5 cannot be here, V5 cannot be here, and V5 cannot be here. Well, then where is V5? Well, then V5 has to be in the exterior of the cycle C. By analogously, V5 is not in the interior of C2 tilde. Oh, well, I said Ci tilde, so I don't need to write this again. Okay. Observe that no matter how you drew your lines, the interior of C tilde is exactly the union of the interior of Ci tilde for I going from 1 to 3. Actually, I need to be more precise here. along with these three paths. So the inside of this the inside of this part is completely formed by the interiors of these parts along with these three edges. So I need to also put that along with the edge V1, V2, V2, V3 and V1. Okay. Along with V1, V4, V2, V4, V3, V4. Okay. But clearly we cannot put the vertex V5 on any of the edges because that would contradict planarity. So this implies that V5 has to be in the exterior of C tilde, because we have just argued that V5 is not here. V5 cannot be here because of planarity. And so if it is not in the interior, then it has to be in the exterior, right? So now we put V5 in the exterior. Okay. Now the problem is V4. Now the problem is that V4 is in the interior of C tilde and V5 is in the exterior of C tilde. This implies, by Jordan curve theorem corollary, V4, V5, the edge V4, V5 crosses C tilde. So we get a contradiction in every case, and that completes the proof. Let's see. Did we anywhere use the fact that the drawing, that the lines were drawn like a concave or a convex manner or anything? Let's go through the proof. Is everybody with me? Is it clear what exactly happened in the proof?
Yes.
I mean, basically, yeah, someone said something?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Anand, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Do you follow the argument, or do you think there is some place where we are making some unstated assumptions?
Just one that I feel, sir. I may be wrong, most probably 100% wrong, but still.
No.
question
Think
I have-
about it. Yeah. So what is the let's say the
Please
difficulty you are
scroll down.
facing?
Can you please scroll down, sir?
Yeah. Scroll down. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so V5 belong to interior of CI, and then V1, V5 crosses the curve C. So, so aren't we making an implicit assumption that VI is in the exterior of CI to begin with?
I see. I
Can
see.
that be explicitly proved? Like in the diagram, it holds fine, but can we prove that it holds for any shape of the cycle that we have?
I see. So you are worried that somehow, okay, I see where your concern is coming from. You are worried that somehow we could, so we have put a vertex like this and joined it to three guys. And you are worried that could it be that this vertex is somehow in this part? Could this vertex V1 be part of the interior of C1? Is that your query? Is that your worry?
It might seem stupid, but yeah, that is my worry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, the drawings can be misleading. So it's all right if the drawing makes us wonder that this is a bit stupid, but that's not, I mean, we have to be careful. We are doing mathematics. Okay. So let's see. How can I convince you that V1 is definitely in the exterior of C1? Let me think about this. How do I convince you? Okay. I think I can convince you. Let me try. Okay. You see, when you have some vertices, when you have some points on a closed curve, they partition the curve into segments. So the segments of this curve are V1 to V2 is one segment, V1 to V3 is another segment, and V2 to V3 is another segment. Okay? Fine?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So now what is happening is we have put a vertex V4 inside, and we have joined V4 to V2 and to V3. Right? So we got these two more segments. We got a segment V2 V4 and a segment V3 V4. Right? And now we are taking the union of those two segments with the segment V2 V3. So I want to convince you that V1 cannot be inside this. Am I still convincing you, or am I just going around in circles, or if I might, cycles?
For any ordinary circle that we draw, it's obviously true. Like for any closed surface that can be conceived, but is it mathematically true that, because you mentioned there can be a lot of crazy lines out there, right? So
Right, right.
So probably we
Yeah.
can draw K4 and then try to find a place where we can place the fifth point so that it can meet all the edges without all the vertices without crossing an edge. Probably that would help to understand why K5 is not planar.
Right. So you're suggesting that we make, but it seems that the approach you are suggesting might help our intuition, but it might use some assumption about the planar embeddings of K4.
Yeah, we can draw any planar embedding of K4 because that should be a part of K5 if K5 is also planar, right?
Right. But here is the point. Supposing K4, this is actually related to your assignment, so I don't know if I want to discuss it so much. I see. Let me think about this.
Sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a suggestion.
Yes.
So we know that V4 is on the interior of C.
Okay.
And so we know that the edges V2, V4, V4, V3 are also in the interior of C.
Right.
So now we know that the interior of C1 is a subset of is a strict subset, just a subset of the interior of C.
Oh, right.
Now we know that V1 does not lie on the surface of C1, like on the cycle itself, C1. And since V1 is not in the interior of C because it lies again on the boundary of C, therefore it cannot be on the interior of C1. So hence it must be on the exterior of C1.
Okay. Right. Let me make the following statement inspired by what you just said. Interior of C1 is a subset of interior of C. Is that something that is believable?
Yeah, because by construction, the graph so far is planar. And so since V4 is on the interior of C, the edge joining V2 to V4 cannot cross C except at V2.
Right.
So any point on the edge must also be in the interior of C. Same for the edge V4, V3.
Right. So V2, V4, except for the vertex V2 itself, belongs to the interior of C1. And
interior of C.
C. Interior of C. And similarly, V3, V4, but not the point V3 itself, belongs to the interior of C.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And V1 is not in the interior of C. So this curve is formed by two segments that are in the interior of C1 and another segment that is formed by a part of the cycle C itself.
Yeah.
Right? And this part does not contain V1 because of the way we are looking at, right? We are looking at V2, V3, so that does not contain V1. So that necessarily means that we are taking a part of C1 along with two parts of the interior of C1, and we are looking at its interior. So that cannot contain anything in the exterior of C1. That cannot contain anything which is on the boundary of C1 except for V2 and V3. I mean, all of this kind of makes sense. I just don't know how to rigorously be like, yeah, this is it. Okay. Let's do the following. I'm going to think about this thing a bit more and see if I can come up with a completely watertight explanation for, okay. Okay, so let's think about this, and we will discuss in the next lecture how to resolve this issue. So here's the thing. I know for a fact that the proof is correct. I just need to convince you that V1 can definitely not be in the interior of C1. We are assuming this right now, sort of. Some of you are convinced, some of you are not convinced. So I'll convince you of this in the next lecture. Fair enough? So shall we move on and come back to this in the next lecture? Anand?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, okay, let's discuss this further in the next lecture. I guess once you're too used to thinking about planarity, a lot of things start seeming obvious, but that could also be misleading. So, yeah. All right. But apart from that, everybody is fine. Apart from this one little issue, which some of you are probably convinced of, some of you are not. We'll discuss this more rigorously in the next lecture. Apart from that, everything else is fine in the proof?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, an exercise by making similar assumptions as we did today is to prove that K33 is non-planar. Prove that K33 is non-planar. Okay? Good. So we have about 5 minutes left to this lecture. I want to tell you what Krutowski's theorem is all about. And we will not be proving Krutowski's theorem in this course. I'm trying to offer a course on structural graph theory next semester, if the department and everybody agrees. And if I do that, then I'll be proving the theorem in the next course, next semester. Okay? All right, so I'm not going to tell you the theorem right away. So let us suppose that we know that K33, or let's say K5 we know is non-planar, right? So we proved it modulo some small caveats. Now I have a question. If K5 is non-planar, then what happens if I take an edge and instead of the edge, I put a path? Is this graph non-planar? Is this non-planar?
Yes.
Yes, it's still non-planar.
Okay, right. Of course, we are assuming that K5 is non-planar. Okay, good. So, but I can do this with any edge, right? I can replace any edge I like, and I can make a path out of it. Such a graph is called a subdivision of K5. We discussed in the last module that replacing an edge, doing this operation is called subdividing an edge. This is called subdividing E. So this is what the motivation is. We are replacing an edge by a path of length 2 multiple times, but we can just replace it by a long path rather than doing it recursively, right? So this is called a subdivision of K5. I won't write down the formal definition. Hopefully it is clear. Now I have another question. What if I add more things to this graph? Is this graph non-planar? Is
Yes.
the new graph non-planar? Yes, right? So this is not a subdivision of K5, but this is a graph that has a subdivision of K5 as a subgraph. This graph has a subdivision of K5 as a subgraph, right? So subgraph just means you can delete vertices and edges to get a smaller graph. So if you delete everything I drew in red and everything I drew in green color, then you will get the original subdivision of K5. And that is why that subdivision is a subgraph of the graph G. Okay? So clearly, if a graph has a subdivision of K5 as a subgraph, then the graph is non-planar. If G has a subgraph H such that H is a subdivision of K5, then G is non-planar. Okay? Well, we are also assuming K33 is non-planar because that is an exercise that you're going to prove. So I can also say, instead of K5, I can also say K33. Well, I can put any non-planar graph here and I can make the same statement. For example, I know the Peterson graph is non-planar. I can put Peterson graph here and the statement is still true. What is really amazing about Krutowski's theorem is that you don't need to put any more graphs here. You can actually characterize all non-planar graphs by just using K5 and K33. So Krutowski's theorem says this is from 1930, almost, well, 90 years now. A graph G is non-planar if and only if G has a subgraph H such that, well, I won't say such that, H that is a subdivision of K5 or of K33. So what Krutowski is saying is that any graph is non-planar because of K5 or K33. That is another way to think of Krutowski's theorem. Every graph, if it is non-planar, the culprit is either a K5 inside it or a K33 inside it, possibly both, right? And this puts the decision problem in CoNP. Our main decision problem is now in CoNP. Because to convince anybody that a graph is non-planar, you know for a fact that there is a K5 or a K33 inside it. You just show that to the person and you show the Krutowski's theorem proof to the person and that's it. Right? So the decision problem is in NP, it is in CoNP, it is also in polynomial time, and this will be the rest of the module for the most part. We will have some more discussion, but for the rest of the module, our goal will be to get to a polynomial time algorithm. Okay, and we will resume tomorrow, and we will discuss this issue, this sort of pesky issue that we are not able to resolve completely, and we will see why that is true. Okay, but try proving that K33 is non-planar, and yeah, I'll see you on Friday. If there are any questions, please stay back. I'm here for another 10, 15, 20 minutes. Oh, one more announcement. If you are still here, I will also put it up on Moodle.